The story falls back to 15th August 1947. 15th August 1947, this is the day where India receives its Independence Day. It's independent from the British Raj. It's a time for rejoice. It's a time for happiness. It's a time for joy. India starts its tryst with destiny. That's what happens. But behind the scenes, there is bloodshed. There is families which are separated. There is a lot of death. So people are passing through a lot of pain because of this incident. And amongst them, there is a story of one particular child, at that time a baby, about 2 years old. 2 years old, with his family, he is put into a train so they could leave what is now called Pakistan and they could go into India. They get to India, but the father never boards that train. Till this day, no one knows what happened to the father. Now this 2-year-old boy is growing up in India. He's growing up in India. He goes to school, but keeps on running away from school, but still has to go to school. Goes to school, gets educated to a certain point, and he ends up in the Indian Air Force. He becomes an officer over there. He becomes an officer over there. Like anyone in a life, continues with his life, has a bit of challenges, and on this journey, he meets a beautiful lady. Love story starts. I meet, their eyes meet, they connect, they end up getting married, and they go to Canada. That's where they decide they're going to settle. Now, while in Canada, been there for a couple of years, the beautiful wife says to the husband, I'm missing home. So guess what? They go back to India. And in India, they rebuild themselves again. This is where they have 3 beautiful children. Things go on very well for a number of years until some more adversity hits the whole family, and they decide they need to do something about that, and their journey takes them to another nation, which is England. So they end up in England. And in England is where I meet this child who was 2 years old, is now grown up, a wise man, an extremely wise man in running businesses, in running his life, in knowing about what sales is all about as well. Destiny makes him my father-in-law. I hear about all the stories, what's happened to him over the years, all what has happened. And I ask him, Dad, I have a question for you. And he says, son, please go ahead, tell me. I said, with all this which has happened to you from a childhood till now, you rebuild yourself, you rebuild yourself, you rebuild yourself. How do you do that? He looks at me and he says, if there's one thing I can teach you, which I could tell you, is remember this. If you can remember this and apply this to your life, you will see miracles happening in your life. He comes up to me and he says, Rohit, you need to have jigra. I was like, what? Jigra? Now, for some of you, this word could be very new. For some of you, it could be something you've heard of before. If anything, this is one word I would love you to remember before you leave this room. And when you leave this room, you remember, I know this word jigra. So we're going to memorize it. Here we go. So I'm going to say jigra, and you're going to repeat after me. Are we ready? Okay. Jigra. One more time. Jigra. And one more time, jigra. Excellent. Now, some of you, or many of you, might be wondering, what is jigra? Well, in the English language or in modern day language, it simply means to have executive presence. It means to be brave of heart. It means having resilience. It means having grit. And whoever is in the sales profession, if you are not having executive presence, it's very difficult to be a sales professional. So a sales professional needs to have this executive presence, needs to have that brave heart, needs to have that resilience, needs to have grit. Without it, especially when the times are down, it's very difficult to go out and sell. So this jigra is so crucial in the sales profession. Now, what happens when you are in a state of jigra? You start becoming inspirational, not for someone else, but for yourself firstly. You start taking 100% responsibility. We as humans have this great ability to blame other people, passing the buck. But when you're in a state of jigra into executive presence, you start taking 100% responsibility, and you start becoming transformational. Transformational, not change, but transforming. There's a difference between change and actually transformation. It's like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. Now, that's what starts happening when you get into a state of jigra. And that is what salespeople require in their day-to-day work.